And even God had to break in on him and put him in his place in Job 38, as we're going to see. And see, and I think that these guys, one of the reason why these men did what they did and fell into the trap that they fell into was that they did not understand God. They did not understand the Lord. They didn't. So now these guys, they hear Job's calamity, and the natural human compassion breaks out, reveals itself, is stirred in them, and they come. And so their coming is a good deal. It reveals sincerity. It shows us that these men had a friendship and that this wasn't just some kind of religious formality. You will find out when you go through something really hard who the true people of God are, or I should say the mature people of God are. The purpose of these guys was to come and to mourn and to comfort. The Bible makes it very clear. This was why they came, to comfort and to mourn with Job. This is proper, it's good, it's noble, it's right, it's godly. And we should understand that when it comes to dealing with whatever we do that is righteous, whatever we do that is good in God's eyes, it is always going to be mixed with sin in us. It will always be mixed with sin in us. There's always an admixture of frailty and fragility in how we move. And whatever good that is in us that is done, it is the Spirit of God doing it in and through us. Brother Jeff, encouraging servant, go ahead.
Jonathan, years ago as a pastor, one of the first things I learned was when you're visiting a family who's had a devastating loss, like Job has had here, and you've alluded to this a moment ago, sometimes a lot of words aren't what's best. I learned that you go and simply minister with your presence, just being there. Maybe you don't have any profound words at that particular moment. Sometimes you just sit there. There was a lady I knew that had lost her grandson who took his own life, and we just sat together. I just held her hand.
That's all you got to do.
That's all you can do. And later on, I helped start the funeral arrangements. But I mean, I was just there. I didn't have anything magnanimous or earth-shattering or anything like that to say. You're just there. And I think a lot of times that's what we need to do. Maybe just kind of not talk so much. Just go and be there. That tells them more than anything that you love them and you care for them.
You know what that's called? That's called being seasonable with your words. And so a lot of us don't know how to do that. We can't wait to point out, this is what most of us do today. We look at what somebody's going through, and of course, we judge through what we see. We look at what we see. You see a man in this situation. Now think about it. He's got boils all over his body. How many of you, and I'm saying this to myself as well, are going to be quick to go over and give this man a hug? How many of you are going to come down there with your pocketbook open to do whatever you can? How many of you are going to be willing to go down there and cook for him, to bring food to him and his wife? Whatever it may be. But see, the thing is, most of us, we want to get to the point where we can say, well, maybe this is happening because is there anything bad in your life that you want to talk about? And you just want to sit there and go like, really? I'm going through all of this. Even if it was, is that how you want to start this conversation to someone who is in such despair? Is that where you want to start? But this is what we do because men want to elevate themselves. And they do that by arrogating themselves over other people. So what I mean by this is that it's like these men, they knew that Job was a great man. Job was a giant. Job was a great man. And so what happens when men who aspire to greatness are around greatness? They're looking for something wrong because they are all ready to jump in and be in that person's place. Just like those people who, I believe it was in Philippians, who were were bold, became bold when Paul was put in prison. They had nothing to say about preaching the gospel and whatever when Paul was out there. They were fine with him doing all the work, but they were jealous of him. So when he was in prison, then they became bold. And then there's a whole story around how it was brought to his attention. And Paul says, if they're preaching Christ, let them go. Let them go. Let them do what they do, because Paul says it's coming from God. What did Paul understand? That God is sovereign and in control, and he always does his will. This is what Job knew. Satan didn't know it. Job's wife didn't know it. These men didn't know it. Job was the only one who knew. So now, as I said, they wanted to come here and to mourn with Job and to comfort him. And so what we should be prepared to understand here is that these men had good intentions, and that good intentions, they can fall short. Good intentions often find short because they become mingled with the flaws and frailties that exist within us. We inject much human presumption in a person's condition, and we read the room incorrectly because we look every way except up when it comes to exercising discernment in these matters. But we need to understand, but it was compassion. They did have compassion, and that's what brought them there. They didn't have to do that. It wasn't like they made a phone call and said, hey, Joe, you mind if we check in? No, they heard about it some kind of way, courier or whatever. They heard about it, made an appointment so that they could all go together. And then they came to comfort and to mourn him. But the case that I'm making is that even these great men, they were ignorant of the divine purposes in all of these things. And what it would do is lead them into rendering to Job very harsh and misguided judgments. This is what was happening. This is what was happening. So when we deal with these miserable comforters for these next 20, 30 chapters, whatever it is, 34 chapters to go, we have to put ourselves in one hand on see things from God's perspective, see things from Satan's perspective, Job's wife's perspective, the miserable comforter's perspective, and see where we fit in this mix. And see where we fit. And I want to bring this out because this book makes no sense if you walk away from this whole thing and forget what it shows you about you and about me. That's what it's for. All of these characters in the book of Job, they were completely oblivious to what went on in heaven. Nobody here knew anything other than Satan and God. None of them knew anything about what took place in heaven before any of it started. No one knew. And that ignorance about the fact that goes on, that God actually decrees all things, this wasn't something that people knew and understood. Sister Lisa, go ahead.
Well, again, I'm just thinking, when we have an opportunity to be comforters, I think this is something that we need to really think about because in our own state, like you said, we need to examine our state. In our humanity, the first thing that we want to do is, we want to figure out a reason, and then these thoughts come.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be, the little voice of the enemy sitting there on the side. Oh, he must have done something wrong.
Right.
God rewards. And then you just spew stuff like that out. In this book, I'm pretty much thinking that's kind of what happened. They go with these wonderful intentions, and you just get these thoughts. Your guard is down, and I've it's happened to myself. Now, I don't think I've ever voiced something like intentionally, that would hurt somebody, but my thoughts have gone there. And I think if we're all honest, we really need to be careful about that and say, this isn't going to be helpful. It's not helpful to think it, whether it's true or not. We don't know. We know God is ultimately sovereign. So again, it's just best to be quiet. You know what I mean? You don't have something nice to say. What's that saying? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything
It at all. That's right. That's exactly right. Sister Candy, what do you think?
Exactly what she just said, because I was sitting here saying, can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all.
Right. Absolutely.
Silence speaks volumes.
That's right. Absolutely. Brother Jeff, man of God, thoughts?
Hold on. Silence is golden.
Silence is golden.
I mean, that's a good saying. And I found at many deathbeds and at deaths that, and even it's always that way. It's always best, like you say, to exude care, because hopefully you really do, and to show love just by being there. And read the room. I mean, somebody wants you to say something, say it, but don't try to guess what, so-and-so died because they smoked too much, or, they rode a motorcycle too fast or something like that. That's not helpful. And try to remember how as it says in the word, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And, we all want that. We all want the comfort. I've had deaths where, I don't remember who was there, but they were there. When my wife died, I couldn't tell you. I know my parents were there, but I really couldn't tell you who was there or who wasn't, because they were just there. They gave me food. They sat there with me. They hugged me, and that's what I needed. And that's what these guys needed to be doing. Now, of course, they hadn't done that. We wouldn't have had Job come out and God have to correct him on how things are. But still, when we approach people, we need to remember that when there's times of great hurt, you just need to be there and forget yourself.
Right. I also think that, because it's inevitable that somebody's going to say something, and somebody should. But the issue is exercising prudence in it. So the ability to know what someone is going through, how difficult it may be, when you start to contemplate all the variety of things that you think you want to say, that you think might be wise to say, rehearse it in your mind and in your heart first. Examine your own heart and ask yourself, why am I asking this? Second, what are the possible outcomes of me asking this? What are the possible ways he can answer this? How would I answer this if this was me? Because it is human nature to attach to everyone's rough period or rough patch in their life. The first thing we want to do is start pointing out to them bad decisions they might have made. How did you get here? And all you're doing is like exacerbating the whole thing and throwing salt on wounds. It makes no sense. Now, they came to mourn and comfort. We read this. They came to mourn and comfort. So what did they start doing? They started out mourning and comforting. And then They allowed themselves to give way to accusing, making and rendering accusations that were inappropriately misapplied to Job. Again, saying a lot of true things, just saying it to the wrong person at the wrong time. They didn't apply to Job. Brother Jeff, encouraging servant, go ahead.
Well, I think you might be able to make the point here too, Jonathan, that Job's friends may have become even a little bit arrogant when they started making their accusations, because like you say, they didn't know, but they had to say something, or they wanted to say something, so it's very well possible that here they are trying to do a good deed, and they're simply making things, at the moment anyway, a lot worse than they need to be.
I agree with that. And that's what I meant when I said these guys, because, I said they were also men of notoriety and men of dignity. And so, you gotta think that in their heads, in their minds, they're probably thinking, I want to be king next. You know what I mean? I want to take Job's place. I want to be at the top of this totem. And so this is how it is everywhere. Somebody in your job is your boss, and they get all the pomp and glory and benefits of the senior level position they're in, and you're number two, and that person is young, smart, looks like they're going to be going on for a long time. But then they have a downfall, and there's a bunch of people, you're going there going like, oh, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Oh, what can I do? How can I help you? But in your mind, you're thinking, I hope they pick me next for this job. This is how humanity is. Waiting for a downfall and then feigning concern about the reason for your downfall or their downfall. People pretend, but they pretend because they want to be next. They're focusing on you. They're focusing on you in making yourself endearing to them so that you don't see it coming when they put the knife in your back. Am I saying that's the case with these men in Job? I don't know. But I'm pretty sure at least one of them was thinking, I'm going to be the big man, in filling in the place of Job. I'm going to be that man of notoriety. I'm going to be the man that gets to walk around with all this pomp and circumstance. But it certainly is something that we should think about, because this definitely happens in our lives. Sister May, go ahead.
Yeah, like when you were saying that, their intentions were good. Like to sit with Job on the ground, mm-hmm. right? They brought themselves to his level. Mm-hmm. They sat there with him, and they entered into his grief with him. They took their garments and they cut them. And, I think that sometimes, the word to me would be like perception. Mm-hmm. Because perception is one's truth, right? And so, and the way in which people see things is the way that they may speak or reveal other things to others. So in their lack of understanding of who God is, Job being the only one, they could only speak to Job in a way that they themselves knew God. You see what I'm saying? Did it freeze up?
Yeah, I think he's frozen.
I think it froze up.
No, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, that was weird.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, now.
Did you hear us?
I did, but then it said something that my live is going to be live for 5 minutes because it detected something. We'll see what happens.
Detect what?
Dear Heavenly Father, just protect our lives so we can continue in your word.
Well, Jonathan, we may be under attack, buddy.
Oh, listen. That's every day. I never saw this message before ever in my life. I mean, as long as
I've never heard of it either.
It's going to go down. It said it's going to go down. You know the little puzzle piece that slides across the screen?
Did you finish it?
Yeah, I did it. And then, but it had a message that said your life is going to be in 5 minutes. But maybe it was talking about it'll end in 5 minutes if I don't do the puzzle piece. So I don't know. But we'll keep going. We'll keep going. TikTok belongs to the Lord, believe it or not.
Amen.
Amen.
So go ahead, Meg. Finish what you were saying.
So I was just saying, like, I think that their intentions were good. I agree with you 100% in the very beginning. They were good. And they truly, I believed before they opened their mouth, they truly were mourning with Job.
Yep.
But one thing that you said that stuck out to me was they could only comfort Job in the way that they perceived God to him. That's the only way that they
That's
could.
right. That's right.
And as we go further, we'll see that these different, I guess, pre-theological presuppositions or theological, right, that they brought into the conversation made God look like somebody that he wasn't.
Right. Well, this is what I want to get to next. One thing I like about what you said, Megan, you pointed out, and I definitely intended to put emphasis on this because I agree with it, which is that when they sat down with him too, as we're going to read in the next verse, they came down to his level, and that's where we need to be. That's what it is to mourn with others and comfort. Is to sit down with them. Is to take an internal posture to not condescend, but to be relatable. And see, so many of us in our flesh, we want to condescend. And I know I'm guilty. We can speak in a condescending way very often, even if we don't realize we're doing that. But this is what I mean about personal introspection before we start spewing out things, not knowing that we're throwing additional daggers into our brothers and sisters' hearts, causing more despair, adding weight to their downcast position, putting bigger burdens on them that didn't exist until you got there. And so sometimes all you need to do is call that person or go visit that person or whatever and just sit down and say nothing. Wait for them to say something. If they say, let's get us a hamburger, go get a hamburger, whatever it may be. But let the person know you're just there. You're just there. And the other thing that we need to do as believers is to recognize what a person's needs are, instead of saying to them, like so many people do at a distance, let me know if you need anything, when it is clear that they need something. Be proactive. Asking a person who is in utter despair, asking them, hey, if you need something, just give me a call. No. Do something. These guys set an appointment and they got there and they showed up. But you always you got these people who want to pretend that they're not being less than godly in their activities by saying that, well, if you need something, just ask me. If you need some extra cash, just give me a call and ask me. They're not going to do that. Most people won't do that. And you are only asking because you know they're not going to do that. And you don't want them to ask you for anything, or you don't want to be in a position to recognize that you should be doing something. This is what people do. And you can have all these arguments about once saved, always saved, the Trinity, propitiation, infralapsarianism and supralapsarianism and all these different kinds of things, getting the Greek word for repentance, metaneo, right, and pronouncing Greek, but you can't get this right. This is what Christianity, true Christianity, is. Dealing with Job. This is what it is. And it's a hard, messy business because we always mix in the impious attitudes. We want to do right, but evil is ever present with us. Paul said this. Whenever we do anything good, there's always this mixture of evil in it that comes from us. So what's lacking in these men was discernment. Discernment when it comes to understanding and recognizing sovereign motives. God's sovereign motives. Most Christians today, they believe that God's only sovereign motives is in those things that they perceive to be good by human standards. If a war breaks out and there's much loss of life, they don't want to say that's God.
Sorry to interrupt, Jonathan. Can you say that one more time?
What part?
What you just said. It was so good.
I don't remember.
You said some people lack discernment because why?
Oh, because of a lack of understanding the sovereign motives. Sovereign motives. In other words, they don't understand God's will. It's a fancy way of saying that. So they don't. So I attribute a lot. I put a list of things here in my notes, and that is that when a person is immature in their faith, the immaturity has much to do with not understanding God. We're not understanding Him. The more you know about Him, the less problems you're going to have in discerning things. The closer you get to your understanding of what happens at that throne, in that throne room. Job knew, and he wasn't even a part of the conversation. So the less you know and the less you trust in the sovereignty of God, the more ignorant you will be in all of your dealings. And everything that you believe that you should do, you believe is a result of you exercising your own works. The less you trust and understand the sovereignty of God, the more reckless you will be in all of your dealings. The less discerning you will be. The more presumptuous you will be. Because you don't understand what's going on up there, you're too busy focusing on what's going on around here. The less you know and trust in God's absolute sovereignty, the more callously you will become in basing your assessments and assertions on things in the world and things that are going on with people, because you base it on what you see. You look at the outward side of things. If you see this man, Job, perhaps you're coming from some other surrounding nation, village, or city, and maybe you didn't know Job. And so you're walking one day, and in fact, even if you did know Job, because we see here in this verse, in the first verse here, verse 11, that even his own friends didn't recognize him. So now imagine seeing this man, dirt covering his body, covered from head to toe to the bottom of his feet in boils, scratching his skin with a piece of broken pottery. What a pitiful sight that is. But I want to make this clear. When you see another brother or sister going through something, you will never have the right to make the excuse that there's nothing you can do. Everyone who says that there's nothing that they can do is lying. And don't think that because you don't have the cash to give to somebody who's in need, it doesn't mean there's nothing you can do. Dancing bears. I don't know who does those things. Oh, cat cars. But anyway, there's always something you can do. Always. Go cut the grass. Bring them a meal. Clean up their house. Send a window cleaner over. Take their car to the car wash. Take them to the bowling alley, something they like to do. Go buy them a sweater because the heater is off and they can't turn on the bill, but you have it. They can't turn on their heating bill, but you can bring them a sweater and keep them warm. Bring them a bunch of blankets. But don't ever say there's nothing you can do, because you're a liar if you say that. And just because you don't say it out loud doesn't mean you're not lying to yourself. And people that do that, it's because they don't believe that God hears and sees what's going on in their heart. He knows what's in our awful, wretched hearts. He knows. So I'm just saying. And this lesson is for everybody. It's for me. It's for everybody to heed. But we don't want to get involved with that. Well, if I do this, they'll be expecting more. None of it's yours. None of it's yours. Verse 12. When they lifted their eyes afar off and knew him not, didn't recognize him, they lifted up their voice and they wept. And they rent everyone his mantle, sprinkled dust on their heads, upon their heads toward heaven. So the mere sight of Job, the mere sight was overwhelming to them. What they witnessed in his affliction was overwhelming. They could not believe it. They were looking for this great man that they are accustomed to know, the man who had this great reputation. The man who did so many things for people. He lost his spiritual glow. If you want to look at the outward person. But we know from the account given that he was the same person he was now that he was before all this happened. We know that now looking at it. And God is giving us insight into this. This is the greatest part of this lesson, which is that Job was right with God. There was nothing wrong with him. So don't look down and condescend on your brother or sister when you see them down in the dumps in need of your help. Do something, because the minute you find out about it, that's an indication that God expects you to do something because he made you aware of it. And when you don't do something, it is because you don't understand God. You may understand the triunal nature of the Lord. You may understand the nature of the atonement provided for us by Christ. You may understand and can defend fully the perseverance of the saints and the depravity of man. You may know the order salutis when it comes to salvation. But if that doesn't give you a heart for the downcast and for the despairing soul, if it doesn't motivate you, if those doctrines, as true as they may be and as accurate as you may be able to expound them, they are doing you no good except to heap coals on your head if you don't know how to show love and apply those things to your own heart and then apply them to those who could use your spiritual uplifting and help and edification. These guys, they saw him, and I'm sure to them it was horrible. Lifted up their voices and wept. They wept out loud, cried out, tore their clothes, sprinkled dust on their heads toward heaven. They were showing the traditional, mournful behavior that characterized the people of that day. Brother Jeff, encouraging servant, go ahead.
Jonathan, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but in the situation that you're talking about and describing about going and being a blessing, go encourage and go serve. Doesn't matter what it is. Find something. Find something. Like you said, if even if it's a chore or a task, maybe you're not familiar with, do your best and do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's right. So Job's. This is going to be a good section because this is where I'm going to be asking you guys for input on a few things, and I'm going to be curious as to what some of you say. But we see that Job's his outward appearance was such that his friends were a little caught off guard, to say the least. They saw this disease that he's dealing with the boils, and they see the misery that he's in, and that it says they couldn't recognize him. I mean, I'm sure they knew who he was, they knew where he was going, but I mean, they're looking at the contrast between what they had seen, what they knew of him, and what they've seen of him in the past compared to what they're seeing now. A man that apparently had everything. And now, this is a man groveling in the dirt, in the ashes, scaling himself with broken pottery.